folks have been asking, so I decided we should do a class on learning the sorcerous arts, learning spiritual herbalism, learning how to do and embody plant spirit work. And I think this is an interesting topic and an important one because we live in a world where information travels at the speed of light, and we, because of the internet, have access to an infinite amount of perspectives and bits of data and information all at our fingertips. It's relatively effortless, and there's a lot out there. There's a lot of voices out there, and I think for people who first start on this path, first get called into this work, it can be more overwhelming to figure out who to listen to and how to learn than to learn just as the process. So it can be really intense for people. And I hear from folks all the time, this is actually probably the thing people ask me about the most is, how did you learn? How do I learn? What should I do? What, book recommendations, school recommendations? What if no one's teaching where I live, and all of that? So I think this is a good thing to talk about. Where this is going to go, it's less about who I think you should learn from and which books I think you should read, and more about how I think people should learn this work. Now, as a preface, I know that there will be accessibility issues. That's part of it. I went through accessibility issues myself, and I know other people will too for different reasons. Those reasons can be where you're located. They can be financial accessibility issues. They can be based on ability, physical or mental ability to access certain teachers or certain teachings, or to be able to travel to learn from someone or go to classes or conventions. I totally get it, and I'm incredibly sympathetic because a huge part of my journey, especially in my younger years, was figuring out how to learn this material and how to tap into the living stream that is green sorcery, the living stream of plant spirit work, without being able to access many teachers. So, this is pre-internet days for starters, and also because of specific ability issues that I have, I was relatively limited in what I could do. So I'm aware of that. And I think it's important to start with that because I know there will be people who watch this class and say, oh, that sounds great, but I can't do that. So I see you, I acknowledge your situation, and I'm going to try to give you workarounds, or at least maybe give you some inspiration, some ways that you can not wait, but get started and kind of let the plant spirits lead from there. So the big takeaway here is, again, for me, in my opinion, if I, had a different situation and if I could go back and do all of this again, the traditional way of learning this work is the best way of learning this work. If we have the ability to work directly with somebody who has already made the connections, they've already done the work, they've already fought hard to win the relationships, they have already done the trial and error and the failures and successes and figured out what works, for the most part, we will find that person carries a wisdom. They carry an ancestral connection to the living stream of this work that they are able to pass on to us. It's initiation. And that's why this traditional mentor-apprentice style of learning has been valued across time and place. Because when you are sitting with someone who holds the work, they live it, they embody it, it moves through them, their blood is mingled with sap. Things are just easier. And the education that you get, the guidance that you get, is tailored to who you are as a person, rather than being broad spectrum and meant for a wider audience. I can speak personally that having written 2 books at this point, I very much have to throttle what I say and how I say it and how much I say, because some of the material that I could teach is mystery based. And if I just put it in paper, people are going to miss it and it's going to be confusing and they're going to walk away going, this guy just talked in circles, right? And also I have to understand that not all teaching, not all information is for everybody. We're all in different places. We all have different abilities and talents and focuses and areas of interest. And it's everything that I could say isn't going to be interesting to every person. So part of the challenge of writing a book about this topic or putting a course together about this topic is understanding that a massive number of people could receive the information and all of them are very different. And you don't want that person to have to wade through a bunch of stuff that is irrelevant for them. So what is in books, what is in courses is generally broad. It's big brushstrokes that are intended to get people interested, to give them things to think about, to give them starting points so they can start clarifying where they should go next, what works for them, and they can start their own process. When you are able to sit with a teacher, sit with somebody who is part of the stream, already has the relationships, is doing the work, they can customize what they give based on where you are in your journey, based on who you are as an individual person, based on what you're interested in, based on what you're not interested in. They can give you things that will challenge you in ways that maybe other people won't be challenged, so that you can learn more about yourself and explore parts of yourself that maybe are weak or are repressed or just haven't been explored yet. They can help you refine and hone the things you are naturally good at because you are in relationship, and it's dynamic and it's fluid. So this is the ideal. This is the ideal way to learn spiritual herbalism. This is the ideal way to learn sorcery. This is the ideal way to learn plant spirit work in general, either through a plant cultural context or a specific cultural context if you are involved in that and have access to that appropriately. So if you can find someone that's saying things that resonate with your heart, that they're doing things that feel good to you, that they're walking the talk, that when you receive information from them, there's some part of you that says, this feels different than anything I've heard before, and it feels like exciting. There's a power to it, like a pull, right? Try to get that person to teach you. The beauty of the internet is that we are able to sort of sit with people that maybe we live across the country from or across the world from. We can spend time with them and interact with them and cultivate spiritually intimate relationships with them, even if we never get to meet them in person, which is pretty cool, you know, that we can have these kind of relationships with our teachers now that were so rare in the past, because if you couldn't, you know, again, if you didn't have the ability for one reason or another to go sit with somebody, you know, tough shit. Now, if the teacher's willing to work with technology, and you know, some are not, we have this ability. So it's very good, and it does create some accessibility, and it does open some things up for us that make it easier for us to move this information forward, to hand the work on to the next generation of people, to cultivate those student-teacher relationships in situations where maybe we normally couldn't. So it's pretty great. I will say that if you have the opportunity to sit with plant working people in person, there is a qualitatively different experience there. Sitting with these people who have done all of this work and have embodied all of this medicine and have moved through all of these magical ritual spaces and have kind of gone on their own journey of figuring things out and doing the work and healing and confronting and exploring and unwinding, there is a power that emanates from these people. Subtle. Most people don't even pick up on it. But when you get to be in a space with them where they're teaching and that green information is moving through them into the room, into the space, it's a pretty magical thing. And even though you'll feel like you're just sitting there, hearing a lesson, hearing a class, attending a workshop, there are initiations, attunements, adjustments that are happening on the subtle level because you are in the presence of someone who is in deep relationship with the green realm, with the plant spirits all, and they move through that person. They move through that person, and depending on the way that individual works, sometimes they move the person. Sometimes the things that come through that person's energy field, or the words that the person says, or the way the person leads ritual, is very much spirit guided, rather than being guided from their own, self. So if you have the ability and you found somebody that you feel some connection to, some affinity for, make the sacrifice if you are able to show up and to be with that person and to sit with that person. Because if you're serious about this work and you want this to be the thing that you do, we will need to make those sacrifices. We will need to step out of comfort zones, and we will need to go without sometimes, and we'll need to we'll need to show up and do some work. That's what it's all about. So mentorship, mentor-apprentice relationships are sacred. They are ancient. They're the way that in every culture that I've had the privilege of learning about, this is how this kind of material has been passed from one person to another in a unique, tailored way from teacher to student. Again, not all of us can do that. So we have books, we have online courses, we have online workshops, we have telephones. I know it's weird to use a phone these days for anything other than scrolling. But I have found that with most people who hold these mysteries, who protect these dualities, and who teach, who are somewhat openly teaching, they're putting themselves out there, that if you show up with sincerity, usually you have to do it more than once, they will meet you halfway. They'll find a way to make it work. So if you want to go beyond the books, beyond the online courses, and into a mentor apprenticeship relationship, it's possible. You just have to do the work. I know a lot of teachers that I've had, a lot of teachers that people I know have said no more times than they've said yes, because taking on a student, taking on somebody who is like a sponge, waiting to soak it all up, suck it all up, it can be very exhausting for the teacher. It's a passion project for them. There's generally not any money in it. It's not necessarily helping them put food on their table or pay their rent. And students ask a lot. We definitely do, right? We ask a lot of our teachers. We want to know the who, what, when, where, why, how of pretty much all of our experiences, and the teacher kind of constantly has to wrangle us in and corral us a little bit and say, be where you are. It's very exhausting. So teachers are more inclined usually to say no than yes. But I have seen and experienced that if you show up and prove your dedication and your interest and your hunger for what that particular person holds, you will win their heart eventually, and they will give you openly. So this is the way this has always worked. I'm not giving you anything new or novel here. I'm giving you information that sits hard with the average modern Western mind, because we are trained into instant gratification. We are trained to believe that we are entitled to everything. And this is just not the way. you don't get to the top of the mountain without the hike, without the walk, and part of this work is understanding that it's work, and that you will be uncomfortable sometimes, and that you will have to make sacrifices sometimes to get what you need and to be where you want to be. But that's part of it. There are growing pains as we reach our roots deeper into the mysteries and we reach our canopies deeper up towards the light. We have to adjust. We have to shed old skin and break out of old patterns and become more of who we are. And it's a hard ask, for the modern mind, because we're just not trained into doing very many things that way these days. And it's unfortunate because when we try to force sorcery to be taught in a way that caters to the modern mind, it becomes diffuse and watered down, and it kind of turns into this broad spectrum thing that people find a lot of power in, but it never really gets them very far because it's packaged in this nice little box, but there's not a lot of permission given to the student to go to the next level. Whereas when we are put through the paces, when we work for it, when we go through those initiations, room is created within us to hold the intensity that is the mysteries. And that's a big part of how I understand the work that we do, is that we are constantly trying to heal and harmonize and create space within ourselves so that we can hold these massive amounts of verdant mysteries. They're big, and we don't come into it ready. It's a process. This is why we talk about initiations. They're beginnings, and they're one after the other. There's not one, there's not just three, there's an infinite number. Every day brings a new initiation when the work is being done correctly. So the mentor-apprentice relationship, sacred relationship, is the ideal in this work. Start with books, start with courses, watch YouTube, listen to podcasts, go to public workshops, ask the plant spirits, open your heart to the green realm as a whole, and ask for the guidance to get you to that person who's going to help you if you feel like that's the way you want to go. But know that all of that is just the beginning, that when you come to a place where all of it becomes standard for you, the novelty wears off, it's because you've just scratched the surface, and there's more if you want more. You don't have to have more. You can take the books, apply the teachings of these different plant spirit workers to whatever it is you do, and allow it to unfold organically from there. This is totally fine, totally fine. But for folks who want their life to be about this work, there's always room for more. And so I say start with what you have access to, what's available, what's being offered publicly, and look for those people who really flip your switch, that really are saying things and doing things that make you feel more yourself, I think is the best way to sum up the complicated reality of what that connection feels like. And then reach out, support them. If they're doing classes and courses and stuff and you're able, support them. Remember that most people teaching this stuff are putting a huge amount of personal sacrifice into it. It's their free time is being spent creating the material. Oftentimes there's no direct money involved. And so anything we can do to take care of our teachers, to honor them, to support them, we should do. But if what you have to bring is your attentiveness and your respect and your love, this is also a form of energy exchange that is very valuable, especially to our elder teachers who have sort of been pushed aside in favor of the instant gratification of Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and Amazon books, right? The elder teachers that exist have been silenced to a certain point. So if you have the opportunity to sit with any of those folks, highly recommended. but we are where we are. We are living in the reality that we're living in. So let's lean into it, embrace it, and find ways to make it as sincere and multifaceted and whole as possible, instead of just this shallow, broad spectrum stuff. So I know it's a little bit rambly, but hopefully that's helpful to somebody and encouraging to somebody that if you want more, ask for more. If you have found someone who's doing what you want to do, is holding the space that you want to hold, is embodying the mysteries the way you want to embody them, start working on that relationship. Don't value your relationships with the gods, with the plant spirits, with the ancestors over the relationships that you can also be cultivating with other humans who are doing the work. All of it is sacred. All of it is sacred and powerful. So if you want more, ask for more and do what you need to do to show up and be receptive to that. If you have experience with this, I would love to hear from you. Get the comments below if you have questions. And then, of course, if anybody has book reviews, YouTube channels they really love, teachers or classes they've attended that have been really helpful in sort of getting the gates open, getting things started, share them below. Let's see what's interesting to people. I have a plan to do some book review videos. We'll do maybe 3 or 4 books per video. So that's in the works. But let's see what y'all think. What are y'all reading? What's been helpful for you in your journey? I'd love to hear it. And until next time, take care.